Hey everyone, welcome back to the Canadian Real Estate Homefront podcast. I think we're on episode 11 or 12.
I think it's 12.
It's 12. Okay. We're rolling through it. All right. How you feeling?
Good. A lot of ups and downs in the market right now.
Lots going
Some
on.
days are encouraging and some days just wipe me off my feet.
I know it's pretty crazy. Just kind of rolling with it, but
Yeah.
let's you want to get into our first topic here?
Mhm.
I think we were going to talk about this last week, but then we had our guest on, so
Yeah,
we kind
that
of
was
got
cool,
away from
though.
it. But it was cool. It was something different.
Yeah, if you
Yeah.
guys haven't heard last week's episode, we had an investor come on who has 83 doors without
Yeah.
any joint venture partners. So
Really cool.
if you're
It's a
looking
good
to scale
story.
your portfolio,
Yeah.
he's a good contact.
It's a good
now.
listen for sure. But anyways, topic number one. So this is an article I found. I respect myself too much to stay in Canada. Why so many new immigrants are leaving. So this one was like pretty
That
interesting.
one was big too, because we posted a couple shorts on our Instagram
Yeah.
about that. And then I had a lot of comments and DMs that directly responded to me and their own experience.
Yeah.
I'm on Cora Digest a lot, so I like to read what people have to say because it's less, people's speculation. It's more personal stories.
Yeah.
So it is interesting. And I said that I wanted to read a couple of them out
Couple of the
loud
comments.
with their permission.
They
And
give-
that's just about them having come into Canada
Yeah.
and now wanting to leave.
Yeah. Well, I'll just do a little
go
stat
ahead.
here. So a conservative estimate of 15 to 20% of immigrants leave the country within 10 years. This is according to Statistics Canada. A big reason is because they're so unsuccessful in getting a job. Yeah, we were talking about immigrants coming here who are overqualified and they're like working retail.
Yeah, so they
Yeah.
come here, and I think it was 36% that selected the category of why they came here in the first place was to get a better education and hope for a better future,
Yeah.
right? So, back in, like, I'm going to use India for an example because the person that I was speaking to was from there. Their education there, they hold to a very high standard.
Yeah.
They come here, they get, the same type of education, like qualifications once they leave, but then finding a job in that field has been difficult for them, or it doesn't hold as much merit.
Yeah. Yeah. In this article, it talked about this guy, his friends were like PhDs or doctors, and they ended up just working in retail, like I said before. But I was talking to a girl who's in HR, and she works for a company. And she said that if they don't have 7 years of like lived in Canada experience, they throw their resume out.
And that's crazy.
Yeah.
And they do that too with like rental applications.
that too.
Even if they have, good paying jobs because there's not as much credit history. And so it is sad. And it just is another testament to, education here. An interesting thing is my assistant is looking to hire out another, someone to help her. Right. And I'm like, this is very backwards because a lot of the applicants had Bachelor of Science with a major in law. And so my assistant has a Bachelor of Arts. Like I said last week, I left university. So the tier is the Bachelor of Science with a law degree, applying to the Bachelor of Arts, applying to someone who's left university. So it is a little bit backwards. And I feel for them because their whole goal to come here, just didn't materialize.
No, it didn't materialize at all. Like you imagine you come here and you think, obviously you come for, I guess, like the safety of Canada, but also you come here and rent's astronomically high. It's hard to get into anything because it's so competitive, especially as, when rates go up, the kind of the economics of that is that rent goes up too, because it's harder to get money. So you come here, you're working retail. It's very hard to get housing. It's also expensive. You're very highly taxed. So yeah, we've been talking about this trend for a while. Like, is immigration going to slow down? Maybe not. But when you start seeing these kind of stories and you start seeing people leaving,
and a decent amount of people that are leaving after 10 years.
Yeah,
right?
A recent Statistics Canada report found 34% of immigrants selected via the economic category, a group selected for entry into this country due to their higher education and skills, were employed in lower skilled jobs. So 34% of them.
So, what's also interesting is I was chatting with someone that had immigrated here, and she said that I asked her why she wanted to leave because she up and even told me that she was wanting to leave, and she didn't say the cost of living, which I expected that would have been her response because she moved to Toronto. it was safety. So just a
Interesting.
comment
Yeah,
on you
yeah.
saying
When I
Canada
said
safe. And
safety.
it is
Yeah,
in
yeah.
comparison, right?
Yeah.
But she said there's a lot more homeless people and drugs in Toronto than I've ever seen. This is kind of not the picture that was painted to me when I came here. And
Right.
I was like, really? Like, we don't have that much crime in comparison.
In comparison. Yeah.
But that was her
reasoning. Yeah.
reasoning.
And then it's also kind of into our next topic here. It's kind of, as we talk about like immigration slowing down and Canadian population slowing, but also Canada's population just surpassed 40 million people, which is pretty crazy. Cause like, I think I remember in like the 30 million. So we're really ramping up immigration in this country.
Right. And it is a good thing for our economy, but then it does tie back into a lot of these people that are coming here. Yes, maybe it's not so great after 10 years, but I see a lot of these applicants that, again, my landlords don't necessarily want newcomers, but they're getting government help for first and last. So the government is
helping them,
them, giving them first and last. So that is, more government spending, basically handing money, and okay, if they need help to secure a place, but it all kind of trickles down, right? We need immigration for our economy to grow, and then there's more government spending with that. I did want to read.
Read a few of those.
Because I found this comment interesting. She said, if you're asking why we are moving back, well, for starters, the North American dream, or in this context, the Canadian dream, is no longer what it was initially. It's more like a debt dream. Free speech is gone, more like communist policies. Healthcare genuinely sucks. I'm still waiting on an appointment from an ENT specialist. 6 months going strong. Trudeau literally failed. Have you seen the Stats Canada published about the rates of rental properties in the GTA? It's very bad. I, in my mid-20s, can no longer afford to buy a house. Forget about starting a family. The most important thing is work-life balance. We Canadians are nice, but are we kind? I don't think so. There is no sense of community or culture I see where it says, let's help each other, even if the government is rotten. Asian cultures have that embedded in them. For them, family is important. Their culture is more based on communal than individualism. Just to end with, it's my point of view. I do my research, and that's what I've understood from it so far.
Wow, that's eerie. And yeah, people might hear that and disagree with it, but I'm always of the opinion that everyone's entitled to their own opinion.
Right, and everybody is having different experiences, and we're just, talking to the people that are coming in.
Yeah.
New immigrants specifically that are maybe struggling. And I do feel for them because, I have agents calling me. I have a lot of rental properties in Hamilton. Will you accept newcomers? And it's just like, I know.
Yeah, no, it's not on you either. And I think like we said, inflation hits everyone different. And I think one of the things that this podcast that people like is how real we are. Like I actually saw someone take our video from Instagram and put it on Twitter.
Oh, did they?
I'm like one of the only people on Twitter that you probably know, but they're actually saying about like how realtors are just like saying that immigration is going to be our savior. And it was actually the video where I said immigration is slowing, and we're continuing to talk about it. So I think it's important because it kind of like opens people's eyes up to a lot of things. Like there are a lot of issues in this country, and like, here's something that someone said here. Chief statistician, Anil Arora. This is an exciting milestone for Canada. It is a strong signal that Canada remains a dynamic and welcoming country full of potential, right? Which is like, obviously it's like, you're kind of just like kind of singing like the birds and the bees here. Like, it's like, what about what that person just said? Like healthcare is so bad. Housing is so bad. Food is so expensive. And the more people you bring here, everyone needs healthcare. Everyone needs a home. Everyone needs food. You're just driving up those prices. You're setting people up for failure. So I don't see it as an exciting milestone until we figure out the economics of housing, of food, of our tax system. Like why is everything so heavily taxed? Like why is 80% sorry, not 80%, but say gas is where it's at now? I always hear it's like 40 to 60% of it is tax. Yeah.
And, not to say I know all the facts with what the government is really doing. I only can see what I see and what I read, but having seen a lot of these applications with immigrants that have first and last paid for by the cities or the government, they're bringing all these people into Canada because it does drive our economy's growth. As much as they want it to slow down right now, their end goal is for our economy to grow. So they want immigration to continue, but instead of handing them money when they first get here, like, let's put that money to better use. Let's,
almost set them up in a job.
Yeah,
Like
or
it's a yes or no within a certain amount of days. You know,
yeah,
you're gonna get, you're gonna be a
exactly.
doctor. You know, we're gonna know in 2 months or not, right? Yeah.
Right. So, it's an interesting way that the government is spending their money
Yeah.
on here, come to Canada and
Yeah,
we'll
you know what? I
see.
also think you and I are very biased, and this podcast has opened me up to it. How we always talk about other provinces being so much more affordable than where we're from. Like we're from near
Hmm.
Toronto, so we feel it a lot. But then you kind of hear about, people in different provinces that don't quite have access to maybe the kind of jobs that some of our friends have in tech
Right.
or in banking, as an example, that pay a lot more. So when you see the delta of how much they're making and the house
Yeah.
prices and the delta here, it's actually opened my mind to it a bit more. So I was always of the mindset like, why don't we, if you want to be an immigrant here, why don't we push you to other provinces that aren't as heavily populated?
Hmm.
But then are we just passing along the problem somewhere else, right?
You're right. And a lot of them are coming here for opportunity, and we have the best schools,
Yeah.
right? So if you're coming here for school, likely you're coming to Ontario. It was like 75% of people that came here for school came
Was
to
school.
Ontario,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah. A lot of foreign students come here just to go to university, but even private schools like Appleby College in
Yeah,
Oakville, it's,
yeah.
littered with immigrant students, but it's because
And
it's good
there
education.
is more
Yeah,
jobs.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
there is more opportunity. If you were coming from another country
Mm,
and you wanted to get a job in Canada,
yeah.
Toronto is likely where you'll
Where you want to
find
go.
where you want to
Yeah,
go, but
for
it's a
sure.
catch-22 because can't really afford to
Yeah,
stay
I
close to
know.
your job. But
You got to make it
that's
in a quick amount of time.
yeah.
Yeah,
So it's sad to see. I guess 40 million is they're calling it a milestone. I mean, it's a good thing for our country. I feel
yeah.
like that's so low for how big we are
How big
still,
we are still.
and we still can't
We
house everyone.
yeah, we
It's
still
just
don't use our resources
it's so
right. But just to
ridiculous.
finish on this topic here, the Canadian population could reach 50 million by 2043, says StatsCan.
Okay.
So that's even, you're looking at another 10 million people in, what's that, 20 years?
Hmm.
So we're looking to immigrate 500,000 people every year. I don't see things getting better. But again, who knows? Like maybe they don't want to come anymore. Maybe this is the truth to it. And as time goes
Yeah.
on, we start to see
Hmm.
people
It'd
go
be
to other
interesting to
countries,
see
or
the
maybe they just stay where they are.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
it'd be interesting to see how many leave after 10 years. So
Yeah.
bringing that many in,
How
okay,
many
what's our
people are leaving?
immigration
Yeah. Yeah.
essentially? Where are you leaving or just
Does
not
that 20%
renewing
of
your
people
work
leaving
permit?
go to 50,
Yeah.
and even, are there young people too leaving as well? Right. You hear a lot of people going to Mexico, and it's true. I have heard it. I'm like, oh
It's
my
going to
God. Yeah.
Mexico.
And then
It is
people
hard
want to
to
go to the
just
States.
up and leave though.
It is very
It's not
hard.
like
It's
you
not
can
an
just
easy
go
thing.
move to the
Yeah.
States.
You
Like
can move
there's
provinces. That's quite an
yeah.
easy thing. But
Hmm.
I've heard a lot of people getting jobs in the States and just loving it.
Interesting. Well, you have to be specialized and you
Yeah.
have to kind of prove that an American couldn't just take that. You're not taking a job away from an
Yeah.
American.
Yeah.
It is tougher to
It's
get a job
tougher.
in the
Yeah.
States than it is in Canada,
Yeah.
for sure.
You're right. You're right. Okay, here's a great one. So this is from Steve Staretsky, I believe his name is. He's a Vancouver realtor. He runs the Loonie Hour.
Okay.
So he writes this little Substack, and it was really good. So he talks about the credit slump. So basically, how many less people are taking money now. So he says, you see, housing booms need credit, lots of it, to keep the wheels turning. The single largest driver of home prices over the past few years have been cheap credit and an abundance of it.
Right.
When money is basically free to you, you tend to create speculation bubbles. Suburban houses come to mind. It doesn't take a genius to figure out what happens when mortgage rates go from 1.5% to 5.5% in a span of 12 months. Mortgage borrowing has slowed to a trickle. Canadian households added a net $11.2 billion income in mortgage debt in the first 3 months of this year. That's the smallest increase in 2 decades and down from a cycle high of $58 billion in Q1 of 2022.
Oh my God, that is a very big difference.
So last year we had $58 billion in mortgage borrowing, and this year so far in Q1 we've had $11.2 billion in mortgage debt in the first 3 months.
It's not only the consumer, right? So it's also the banks with their tightening, with their all of monetary policy right now. It's tougher to get an approval. So even though probably less people are going out to borrow money because it's way more expensive, yes, not as many people are adding to their portfolio or buying that second property. But it's also the banks not giving out as much or not approving people as easily,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Self-employed income too is tough with the A lenders. It's like very tough,
Yeah.
right? So people are having a harder time even if they want it. So I think it's on both sides, not just the consumer not taking
Not wanting
advantage
it.
of it. But
Yeah. And according to Equifax, new mortgage origination plummeted by 42% compared to Q1 of 2022, the lowest volume witnessed since 2014. In the opinion of Rockstar veteran mortgage broker Jim Turetsky, sorry if I said that wrong, compensation for most brokers is down 60% year over year. Suffice to say, the industry is entering a significant consolidation the coming year or two, and it's not just mortgage brokers, realtors and developers are also in the hot seat.
60% decrease in salaries or
In income. So like when you think of real estate, right? Like people are always like on our podcasts are like, good, like they deserve to make less. And don't get me wrong. Like there's some rock star real estate, there's some rock star mortgage agents, there's also some duds. It's like the same in every industry, and it's too oversaturated. And this is almost like a beautiful way to kind of purge the people out who were just like not supposed to be realtors and like they just got their license during COVID. So I think it's a good thing, but it trickles down through the economy, and this is what Canada, the Bank of Canada wants, because when you sell a house, it touches so many hands, right?
Right.
You sell a house, the realtor gets paid, then the mortgage agent gets paid, the lawyer gets paid, and then they do work to the house. So there's a landscaper getting paid. Yeah. Then, his guys get paid. Then there's an electrician gets paid. A plumber gets paid. There's land transfer tax. Like there's this huge trickle down effect that happens. So when you see volumes this low, it's going to start to ripple through the economy. You're going to see people stop spending money. Yeah. It's just not as abundant as it was when rates were 1% and everyone was running around with their, heads cut off buying whatever they could.
Totally. Yeah. But it's important to look at, the rates having gone this high, again, who it's affecting. Okay, everybody for the cost of goods and services, yes. But the people that have renewed their mortgage, yes, maybe are not spending. But the people that have maybe are in a fixed rate for another couple of years, maybe they're not being affected as much because only 1/3 or under 30%, I think, have come to their renewal. So those people are being affected. So they're going to stop spending so much. But then there are people that are kind of like not really feeling it right now. And do they continue spending as status quo? Yeah. Yes, I mean,
I've looked myself in the mirror and been like, I need to slow down on my spending too. Like just, not that I'm broke, but it's just like, things aren't as abundant as they were. Deals aren't coming as easily as they were. It's not the same as it was. So if, you put yourself in like a young person's shoes, you're probably thinking the same thing.
Yeah, no, it is true. It's just when you look at the fact that inflation trickled upwards again after this has kind of been put in place, like mortgage rates were 4.75. They're 4.75 now. Yeah, they were 4.5 and inflation still went up. So I think it just...
That's the overnight rate too, right?
Yeah, you're right. That's not even the rate that you get from the bank, right? That's the overnight rate. But it's just, if it's trickling up after that, that just means I think there's still a big portion of people that aren't necessarily feeling it. Yeah. And followed by a yet. Yeah, yet. Job loss, I think, is imminent. Like for me right now, I think there's way too much credit out there. There's so much debt. We're the most indebted G7 country in terms of household debt. Rates are really high. Inflation is sticky. I think right now, if you're buying a home, and what I mean by that is like, you're going to be there for 5 years, you're buying for your family, I think it's an okay time to buy. If you're buying a house per se, like an investment, I would be weary. You don't know where the next 12 months are gone. We thought we were out of the woods at the beginning of this year, and here we are kind of seeing like all this mortgage origination fall. You're seeing, people's salaries fall. You're seeing people lose their jobs slowly. It hasn't really come to fruition yet. So the next kind of, not to be eerie, but 8 months, I would just be cautiously optimistic. And if I'm wrong, then the worst case scenario is I was too cautious. But sometimes it's better to be cautious because there's so many people that I've talked to that were competing when they bought their home, and they're like, I wish I lost. I wish I never got it. Like this variable rate is just killing me. I wish I just never had it. Right. It's a small portion of people for sure. Yeah. But to hear it is not something like you get excited about. There's always going to be people on a variable rate that affect, like, fluctuations happen. Housing market goes up and down. I think if we look at the history of house prices and how they go up and down over
Mhm.
time, and when the surges happen or quote unquote crashes,
Yeah.
there's been times where it's just been a lull, just kind of a straight, no kind of curves for a little
It's
while.
a nice time to buy.
Yeah, so I think that's what we're seeing now. It's definitely slowed since April, May. Like
Mhm.
it is slowing down. We are approaching the summer, so historically summer
Yeah.
is
It's
slower than
slower.
spring and
Yeah.
fall. The good houses do still get multiple offers, and not necessarily because everyone has the itch to buy a house, but because maybe it's a neighborhood or a very nicely done house that
Yeah.
has qualities that more than one buyer would want. And then there's some that sit on the market, and that's just a balanced market. And I think we've been in such a up down cycle for so long that people got used to it. So now when we see more of a balanced market where some listings sit on the market, some get bidding wars, some go in a day, some go in 20 days.
Yeah.
There's conditions on sale of property, there's financing conditions, there's firm offers, which is more balanced. People are thinking that's, oh my gosh, we're crashing, but um,
It should
it's just
be.
we're just in a
It should be how real estate
it
is.
should be
Like
how
there
real
should be
estate is.
inspection conditions. There should be.
Contracts for listings are
Yeah.
3 months. And why? Because that was the typical time it would
Yeah.
take to sell a house. People aren't used to, this is cool.
Little party in
We
the
got
back.
some lights flashing on us. People aren't used to houses sitting on the market over a month. After
Yeah.
30 days, people are like, oh my gosh. But it's just been the recent couple of years that this has been the norm.
For sure. Yeah. Greed is curiosity kills the cat
Yeah,
sometimes.
but I do agree with you that not as many people are adding to their portfolio right now.
Yeah.
I do think prices are, maybe they could go down a little bit, but compared to last year, if you're looking at specific types of investments like what I do, double rentals, multifam, you are getting in at a better purchase price than, let's say, your neighbor that bought last year.
Yeah. It's got to be a long-term play. And
It's got to be a long-term play.
Even Kellen said it, he bought a variable rate on a 24 unit, but like we were talking about too, the cycles of real estate are there for sure. But I don't think we've ever seen such high prices in real estate coupled with 400 plus basis points of increases.
No.
And I don't think people even knew what they were getting themselves into taking a variable rate, right? Like it's never been this volatile where, you're literally extending your amortization to 60, 90 years. I just saw one on Twitter.
90
You saw
years.
Kellen just say full interest. He's paying full interest. And again, he's an investor, so it's different, but you're going to have people with this primary residence that you're just paying interest on for probably to when 2025, 20.
Well, that's like what you're doing with rent.
100%. But it doesn't
rent it out. If you got to pay
rent
interest
doesn't
only right now,
rent doesn't go up as fast as some of these people's
Interest
mortgages.
only.
Yeah.
So I think that some people that experience this craziness were people that needed to have the variable rate when they purchased.
Yeah.
Because if you're qualifying at a purchase price with 1%,
Yeah.
that is very different than the fixed rate at the time, 2.5, whatever it was at the time. That 2.5 fixed rate, if you were shopping around with that would have changed your purchase price. And since everything was in bidding wars, taking the variable rate would have allowed you to increase your budget and maybe win the house. So I think some people...
I know, but the dangers of that, like you just said, to win the house, like, you know what I mean? It's like, we were just in this crazy credit where just everyone had it. And it was just, you look back at it and you're just like, we'll look back at this as realtors and be like, what a time that was. And like, we don't miss it.
It was nuts.
It's nuts.
It was mayhem. It was more people just wanting to win. Whereas now when I hear people saying, I want to avoid competition, I'm not getting into a bidding war, I actually say, hey, listen, it's not so much a bidding war anymore. And things do.
It really isn't. Yeah.
It's more like multiple buyers are wanting the same house, like a specific house in a neighborhood, right? Mineola seems to get multiple offers. Hamilton Mountain seems to get multiple offers. And why? Because it's a desirable location. And I think just multiple buyers want the house rather than want to win the house and I'll pay the most to get it, kind of like an auction.
Yeah.
Because more people are, and I'm seeing, even with my own clients, are willing to stop. Like, no, that's it for me. Whereas it was a game before.
Yeah.
Whereas now it's like you kind of submit, your offer. And there's not as much, even with other agents, going back to the table. Can you increase? It's kind of like what you offer is maybe give or take 10 grand, 20 grand, but I'm not seeing the bidding war. I'm just seeing a couple people interested on a listing.
I think I had 7 offers on something and I priced it right. This was last year too. Like even it was even slower. Everything was conditional.
Yeah.
So it's not like if you are out there and you're a buyer, like don't be afraid to throw something in there.
Right.
Yeah.
And a lot of them, I had 11 offers on one, and this was in April. So again, it's slower from back then, but there was like 6 under asking conditional.
Yeah.
And I think buyers have in their minds the fear of bidding wars where
Bidding.
people would actually bid,
as they should,
bid.
as they should though.
Right.
Yeah.
And now it's just multiple people offering because it's a nice house.
That's the job of the agent, right? A good agent will call the listing agent.
Yeah.
What are you expecting? You know,
Right.
here we are, and you just ask the right questions, and you know, people want to work together and they want to work with smart people. So
Exactly.
all right, last topic here. Did you remember Wallstreet bets? Did you hear about all this fiasco back in the day during COVID?
No.
So GameStop, it was like this stock, right? And all these hedge funds were shorting this stock. GameStop is like basically you go into the shop and you buy like a video game.
Okay.
So nowadays you can actually just buy them online. I'm not a gamer, but you can just buy them through like Xbox or PS4, whatever.
Okay.
So anyways, this whole Reddit group understood that all these hedge funds were shorting the stock. So they all got together and they started buying the stock. So the trade was going against the hedge funds. So these hedge funds lost billions of dollars. Like it was all over the news. There were so many like retail investors, as they call them, who got stupid rich. So they also did it with like Bed Bath and Beyond. And anyways, it was kind of like to go against the 2008 financial crisis, as people got greedy and like they remember their parents losing all their money and stuff like that. Like I actually remember the 2008 financial crisis because my dad lost like 3 jobs. I remember it was bananas. But anyways, so these guys now, so I just was reading a thread. Canadian housing market will crash. Home prices in Canada are so absurd that young people and new immigrants can no longer afford rent/mortgages. The current rate hike cycle will become the tipping point that pushes thousands of mortgages into default. Food bank use in Canada is skyrocketing already. At least one of the major banks will fail, and like a falling house of cards will bring down the other banks. The CMHC, the Government Housing Corp, that's supposed to insure mortgages, will run out of cash within 6 months.
From now?
That's what this is. This is just someone posting about this.
I think that's ridiculous because if you look at the banks in America compared to Canada, we have 7 banks or something. They have hundreds.
Yeah,
so it's very different when people hear, a couple banks in the States crashed or failed, ran out of money. I think that they think that it's likely something will happen in Canada. It's so not. That to me is ridiculous. The CMHC is not running out of money.
Yeah. I don't know.
That is very, very bullish.
The only thing that I've seen is that I think OSFI is forcing banks to build in this new reserve for defaults, which is kind of like a telling sign. So it's been a little bit on Twitter. We'll try and talk about it next week a bit more, like as more comes out. Like CIBC was like the first one, and now someone's saying more about it as well for all these other banks. So it's kind of like
OSFI is
you want to look for little clues.
Down.
Yeah.
Did you hear about the CIBC audit?
Mm-hmm.
So OSFI is the governing body that oversees the major banks in Canada.
Yeah.
So they, are the ones that enforce new regulations like this reserve, for example. And CIBC was audited, and during the past however many years, maybe a couple years, they were overextending their lending. And basically, when you go to get a mortgage, the bank or broker runs your GDP, which is, or not your GDP, your total debt ratio, TDS. GDS? GDP, I'm getting them mixed up. GDS and TDS, okay? So your total debt ratio compared to basically what you spend out and what you make. Right? So they were allowing people to borrow if they were kind of on the side of not qualifying, but close enough. They were just pushing them through. So I guess now they're cracking down on banks that have done that, which you're not supposed to.
Yeah, I know.
Some banks are easier than others to get a mortgage. It's like you almost know which bank is going to approve you.
Yeah.
Even Kellen was saying Scotiabank's very good with the multiplexes.
With the multiplexes, yeah.
But I think that they're going to step in. We're not going to see any bank crashes in Canada.
Yeah, no, I don't think we will, but we will. We'll keep you guys updated on that. But
That's an interesting topic.
It's an interesting topic. Yeah. I think it's always good to see both sides and see like, hey, there's a whole group of people who shook the world, and here they are maybe trying to do it again, shorting the Canadian banks. So
they're shorting the Canadian banks.
That's what he said. Yeah. We'll see more of it, but I don't know. We'll get more information as it goes on. But yeah. Anyways, You got anything else?
No.
Cool. Neither do
I
I.
can't wait to hear more
Hear
about
more about it.
shorting a Canadian bank.
All right, guys.
That
Oh yeah, I know.
blows my mind.
Anyways, all right, guys, thanks so much
Okay.
for listening to this. If you are on Instagram or TikTok, you can see more short form stuff there. That does the best for us. So if you love short form stuff, go follow us there. And then please subscribe to our YouTube channel and like this video, as well as rate us on Spotify and Apple Music. I think we're almost at 10K followers on Instagram, which is super exciting and
10K today.
such a short period of time. So we really thank you guys for caring about what we have to say, and it means a lot to us. So I guess we'll see you guys next week.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.